Welcome back to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. Today, we're sitting down with another 20 mailbag questions that you, the listeners, have sent in, and that we, the hosts, have to answer. I'm Megan, and with me today are Kyle and Adam.
So the way that this episode is going to work is that we're sitting down with a list that has been randomly sorted from the monstrous amount of questions that you guys have sent in, and we're going to roll initiative. That's going to determine which of us has to read out the questions in what order. Remember that everybody has to answer each question, but whoever reads it out loud has to answer it first.
DM2, Kyle, that's you. Sorry, DM.
Is it there?
Kyle?
I guess. Sorry.
What is happening?
I don't know. I've been trying to get my fucking microphone to work for the last 15 minutes, and it was not working. And I was like, fine, I just won't use it. And then all of a sudden, it started working, and I guess I muted it. So
there you go. Okay.
Fucking hell. And yes, we have to answer every question.
I like it. It's such a good rant. All right, everybody, raise some dice. Let's roll. See who has to do the first section here.
Fuck.
14.
13.
19.
Oh, Adam.
Oh, fuck. I was really hoping to snooze for the first 5 questions, but here we go. From Jeff, who has stepped back from the podcast and decided to become a patron anyway, so I guess we have to answer his fucking questions now. God damn it. How do you feel about King Kong? Man, I fucking love me some King Kong. I like kaijus in the first place, and King Kong has been existing in kaiju space for the last 30 years, and I'm a big fan of it. I like the big poetic nature of the original. I even like the Peter Jackson remake in 2005 or whenever it came out, just because I don't know, I'm a big fan of the thing that is way bigger than us and how scary it is. And I fucking love King Kong. I'm always rooting for King Kong every time that he goes up against Godzilla or anybody else. So
I was gonna say the only King Kong I really know is King Kong versus Godzilla. I'm pretty sure.
Have you not watched the original black and white one?
No, I have not.
You will.
I think there's
yeah.
I think there's 12 King Kongs versus Godzilla at this point.
That's what I mean. I think that's the only ones that I've ever seen or actually engaged in. Yeah, so I've never watched the original. Maybe I saw the new Peter Jackson one at some point in time, but do I remember it? No.
You don't remember Jack Black running through the jungle when he's not beside the rock? It's the only other time he's done it.
Isn't that just in the new Jumanji movie?
Yeah, no, I really like King Kong. I don't know why. For some reason, I'm all about it. There's a thing for me and like apes as well. I like Mighty Joe Young. I like the new Planet of the Apes movies. I don't know what it is. I'm all about it. I really liked Nope, but for slightly different reasons. And yes, I was rooting for the chimp the whole time. I don't know. I like apes and monkeys. For some reason, I'm very interested in them. I'll tell you what it was. When I was 13, I read Congo by Michael Crichton that has the ape, the gorilla that can sign with everybody. And then they go deep into the Congo to get, I think, diamonds. Or was that just in the movie? Anyway, I don't know. Something just, I think I was at the right age. So anyway.
Oh my god.
So yes, I like King Kong. What a strange way to start the episode, but here we are.
Yeah.
Also from Jeff, do you like westerns? No, not particularly. I don't know. I don't watch westerns. Up in Canada, I do not engage with the idea of the wide open sweeping plains, especially in BC. Like, the American fascination with cowboys is strange, and I don't get it.
Yeah, especially since the Wild West was actually only 10 years. It is vastly over-exaggerated in all sorts of movies.
And it's... Sorry, go ahead, Megan.
So you mean it didn't span the 2 to 3 centuries? That's crazy.
Yeah, I know, right?
And it's completely glorified and whitewashed as well. The original cowboys were black people fleeing west, right? That were there's a huge part of black history that nobody fucking talks about. And short of Blazing Saddles, I can't think of a Western that features a central black character, right? I'm just hyper aware of how they're just superhero movies without the superpowers. Some guy comes into town and rescues the town from the big mustache twirling bad guy, but it's supposed to be real life, but it's not, and everyone believes it.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah. The fourth wall is just too comedic for me. I'm not a fan. I don't get me wrong. I think the only thing that I watched that was Western that I actually enjoyed was Deadwood. That was a really good series. Yeah, but
I really liked the first couple seasons of Hell on Wheels. Westwood or Westwood. Westworld is one of my favorite
I was gonna
shows.
say Westworld. Yeah, Westworld was a good one, but not inherently a Western at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that
No.
might be my nerd showing through. I don't know. Okay, so then I'll ask, what's your favorite Western movie? I guess that's a better question. If we take TV out of it.
Favorite Western movie?
Yeah.
Wild Wild West.
Fucking
You
troll.
know, you know, great film. You know, great film. I was gonna say Five Will Goes West. Like,
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
of
Although, do you consider that a Western?
course I do. It's a cartoon Western.
All right, all right.
Just says cats and mice.
Good Lord. You guys just went completely off the rails. Like, technically correct, which is, in fact, the best kind of correct, but also, what are those fucking answers? I don't know. In a serious answer, I liked Open Range with Robert Duvall and Kevin Costner because those guns, like when they shot people, those people got thrown back. Like they were hand cannons. It was just gratuitous violence. But
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
it's one of those one like Kevin Costner's just obsessed with doing westerns these days. If it's not a baseball movie or a golf movie, then he's doing a western. And so it was, I think, one of the first ones. It was filmed in Canada too, I believe. But I remember seeing that in theaters because there was nothing else playing, and I enjoyed the gunplay in it. That was fun. But did you guys ever see The Quick and the Dead with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Tombstone as well. I think Tombstone is probably
Yeah,
three.
I mean, yes, absolutely. I will say, however, that I cannot go back and watch Young Guns. That is rose-colored glasses. Like, I can't. I know it's an objectively bad movie, but I loved it when I was a kid. So, anyway, let's move on to some D&D questions
Yeah.
on this D&D podcast. What are the first rules clarifications that you or will you be looking for in the 2024 books? I don't know. We are recording this on the 17th, which means the player's handbook just landed in my lap today. And I have been on the Discord seeing everybody who pre-ordered it, given updates, and they've managed to go out and buy advanced copies off of their local gaming stores that don't follow release date rules and all this stuff. So like, I'm aware of stuff, but there's a whole section at the back of the new player's handbook, which is just like a huge rules glossary, and it's pages and pages and pages. And I can't wait to sit down and look at that on with a fine tooth comb. I don't care about the subclasses, but I am interested in the backgrounds. So
I just want to see if they re-updated and have a very clear guide on what grapple, petrified, like all those things are.
Yeah.
All the conditions. I want to see the conditions be more like fine-tuned or easier to understand, to be honest with you.
Okay. I'm kind of curious to check out their new stealth mechanic. Apparently it is odd, but I don't know, it makes it a lot more friendly, I guess, to use, because there's so many arguments about like who is hidden, who isn't hidden, are you hidden well enough, like what does that guarantee, what like doesn't it mean, kind of thing.
Yeah, more clarity on the hide rules would be good, especially in combat. And also I'd like to see how that's going to affect other people beside the rogue.
Yeah, true.
That was from Alan Brewbeard. The next question is from another Skip, who, as I understand it, is going back and listening to the entire catalog from the beginning again, which, I mean, I can only imagine the quality dip in both audio quality and the conversations themselves, going back to the days that it was me, Dan, and Terry screaming at each other over nothing for the first year. But anyway, he apparently discovered that we did not like the remove curse idea because it's too fucking easy. And I stand by that. In 5th edition, curses are a wet fart, and he actually brings that up. So what he says is, the real solution to remove curse is adding a material requirement of significant knowledge of the weaknesses of the creator of the curse. This prevents the wet fart problem, and the curse can either be a back burner, wait until downtime, but then you limp along until a solution is found, or the players can choose to make it a big enough deal to expend game time on a solution. So here's the question. Do you as a DM allow players to use cursed items as weapons, like putting a cursed weapon in the hands of an enemy, killing with a murderous cursed item, etc.? And as players, would you or have you tried turning found curses against an NPC? Yeah, I like curses. I find that for the most part, I can't use them. So there's actually, and Megan, you're not allowed to tell anybody, there's actually a cursed item that I've handed out within the last 10 weeks that you guys have not engaged with yet, but one of you is carrying a cursed item. And I'm curious to see what you're going to do with it.
I feel like every campaign I've played in has a cursed item somewhere, whether it's us that carries it or an NPC that carries it or any game that I've run. There have been cursed items that exist, right?
Have you ever thought about using it against an NPC?
Against it, like as a DM, use it against an NPC, or as a player, use it against an NPC?
As a player, like, hey, I know this item is cursed. Let's fuck over that guy.
I would say that I don't think I've ever done that to be chaotic. I think that there has been instances like in our last campaign, and the one that from my friend Cole's running for us right now, actually, Roman's character had a cursed item, and I grabbed it from him, and I basically held on to it and wouldn't give it back because I knew it was gonna like continue to hurt him. But then after long conversations, we ended up just using it on one of us at some point. I don't remember what for, but like, so cursed items, I will use them against people if I need to, but I will not do it on purpose. I'm not that chaotic of a player just to do it for shits and giggles. There has to be a reason.
Fair.
Yeah.
I honestly never even thought about using it against an NPC, but I think that's a great idea. It does give a little more life to the whole curse item thing. Going back to like the first part of the question, where it's talking about like the whole wet fart, I do think that's like a pretty great idea that you have to find something that is like tangentially related to the curse to be able to break it, rather than just waving your hand and going, I remove curse. It gives it a little more feel, especially when you have something that you're like, oh, this is a 10,000-year-old sword. You know, it should have a little more oomph behind the curse, right? You should be afraid of a curse.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where I don't think you really are in 5e.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I love the idea of having to learn something important about a weakness of the person who made the curse and cast it upon you in order to be able to break it, because it's like you're wrestling the curse out of that person's influence. That's a really cool idea. Another skip follows up with another question. Do you think D&D 5e is set to easy mode for the players? The Meet the DMs episode, Adam, I have a hot take on it, so apparently. So if you wanted to fix that, what game would you use to capture the feeling of a more expert level of player challenge? Yeah, it's on easy mode. And I saw the response to this on Reddit, and someone said it's on easy mode because it's easy to pick up and it's easy to learn. It's easy for people to understand. No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's on easy mode because players can't die. The whole game is stacked in the players' favor since from about level 3 onward. It is hard to kill players. And as a matter of fact, the only times that I have ever killed players is when I have had to stack the deck so hard against them in giant set piece encounters that I still believed that they would win, but they started to react in ways that I couldn't understand or foresee at all, because it was such overwhelming odds against them, right? When we had our like half party, half TPK about a year ago, Megan, that got completely out of control very, very quickly because of the action economy. But one of the things that I think really killed it was the fact that Dave wasn't there at the table. I didn't foresee that. His barbarian wasn't raging and going toe-to-toe with the big bad guy. Dan wanted to protect him as long as possible, so threw him in the background where he was getting swarmed by a bunch of little guys instead of running up to the big guy and hitting him. That's not how Dave would have played that character. He went out in a blaze of glory and it was awesome and he saved a bunch of NPCs, but there were a few things that happened in that fight where I was really surprised, and then player characters ended up dying. For the most part, it's fucking hard to kill player characters. And as a matter of fact, Charlie very, very easily at level 7 in our last session just counterspelled without too much of a thought power word kill, and it just fizzled. Like, all right, well, there goes my fucking spell slot for it, right? It's too fucking easy to stay alive. Twilight Cleric alone in 5th edition was just keeping everybody up for so long. So Yeah, it's easy. And if I wanted to fix it, what game would I use to capture the feeling of more expert level player challenge? I'd go back to 3.5 or I'd play Call of Cthulhu. Those things are meat grinders. Mork Borg apparently is a bit of a meat grinder as well. But I would probably check out one of those ones if I wanted to really put the fear of God back in my players.
You're just mean. That's all.
Well, okay, to be fair, the fear of God was in me when I was sitting at your L5R table. I was convinced I was going to die.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's just smoke and mirrors, though. You know what I mean?
How do you smoke a mirror?
But none of your business. I mean, do I think that it's easy mode? Yeah, of course it's easy mode. I feel like it was but I like that's the beauty of it, is that you can make it as easy or as hard as you want to, and doesn't feel like you're punishing your players because the system sucks. So I don't know. I enjoy it. But if you want to have like a more complicated game, yeah, L5R is a lot more challenging in terms of being a little bit more deadly, like when it comes to killing your characters. Or just play Call of Cthulhu. That one kills your fucking characters. Like I will never forget. That's the one where I was like, I don't think I've lived in a Call of Cthulhu game we have played. So there you go.
Might be time to get back at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to agree with the Call of Cthulhu. That one, I can't remember the name of it, but I was reading about it the other day. It's like a sci-fi tabletop RPG where you can die in character creation.
Yeah, what fucking game is that? Do you remember, Kyle?
I can't for the life of me remember the name of it. Is it a Star Wars game, maybe? I don't know, but you basically like simulate your player's life up until like the beginning of the game, and apparently it's like an 85% chance you can just die in character creation.
It's called Traveler. I just Googled it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know anything about it. The other one that I heard is really deadly is Mothership, which is like a sci-fi horror game.
All right. Like kind of along the lines of Call of Cthulhu?
No, it's you're out in space, and space is deadly as fuck. And there's things out there that want to kill you. It's more along the lines of there's an Alien tabletop role-playing game based on the movie Alien, right? And that's apparently really deadly. Mothership is a more generic version of that. That's not tied to that IP. So it's, as I understand it, and I don't understand it very deeply, so there will be people screaming at me, but apparently, yeah, it's pretty deadly.
All right. Well, that's it for the first round. Let's roll again and see who goes first. 9.
14.
Oh, thank God I got a 4.
Okay. So from Mr. Mohawk 2, his question is, love L5R, but never played it. Thinking of DMing for a group of fellow newbies. Although we have read the L5R clan novels, our collective experience is limited to 5e. Is it possible to adapt one of the L5R modules to 5e rules? If not, or alternatively, is there an L5R adventure that you would recommend a group like ours begin with? I can't answer this question because I have never played L5R.
Get on it, Kyle. Figure it out.
We'll wait. Go do your research.
Yeah.
We'll be patient.
Be back in 2 months.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm assuming that when we talk about 5th edition in these questions, we're talking about D&D 5th edition is what they have experience with.
I assume so because they call it 5e and not 5th.
Yes, because technically there is a 5th edition of L5R, but no one plays it. And whoever does, I don't know who does. I've never played it.
Just a bunch of perverts in their basements, I'll tell you.
Yeah, a bunch of weirdos. So I would say that like it is actually quite easy to adapt. The only thing that's troublesome is they did change the way magic works with the commie in terms of characters and the way characters are built when you switch to the 5th edition module, because there is now a 5th edition module. I don't remember how long ago this question was written, but there is the 5th edition book that you can buy now that makes it into D&D 5th edition rules. So that would be the number one book that I would say to buy if you're trying to adapt things into a D&D 5th edition setting. If you are looking at modules from L5R and wanting to turn those into D&D 5th edition, the modules themselves, the big bad evil guys, yeah, absolutely, you can do that. The NPCs might be a little bit more difficult because, again, they did change how magic works, and they did change how fighting works, and they did change a little bit of that stuff there. I remember when I went to go run the game for you guys, I actually bought the 5th edition Legend of the Five Rings book to see if I would think that would be easier to teach you guys how to play and like introduce you to the world with rules that you know. And I actually found it more difficult. So I basically just pushed the book to the side and said, F it. Like, it's easier for me to just teach you guys L5R because the system is quite simple. Like, Adam, you can attest to it. It's the D10 system is quite easy to learn once you know it. And it's not too overly complex. So I don't know. And at the end of the day, if you want to pick up the 5th edition book, there is an actual little mini campaign at the back that you can play to introduce you to the world. So I would say if you want to start with transitioning into D&D 5th edition rules with an L5R setting, just pick up the main module and play the game at the back of the book, because that will give you an introduction to all the pieces that you need to actually kind of understand the world a little bit. But if you want to play L5R, just pick up a 4th edition book that costs over $700 on Amazon and give it a go.
When it gets to the point where things become that cost prohibitive, I am completely understanding of people who take to the high seas to get their answers.
Oh, 100%.
For the most part, I do say support the creators, especially the indie ones, not Paizo or Wizards. Like everybody else out there is like in the shadow of giants and need every little bit of help they can get. And so support them monetarily as best that you can, but with $700 a book is fucking insane, right? So
$700. I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Yeah. We went to actually go buy Megan another set of books because there's a few books, right? Yeah. We went to go buy them as a thank you for the next Christmas or birthday or whatever it was after she ran it for us. And
don't love her that much.
No, I looked it up.
She tops out at like $100 worth of love.
Honestly, that's quite accurate.
$100. What, are you made of fucking money? I'm gonna give her a $5 Subway fucking gift card. That's how this is going.
Well, I assumed it would be like a pooled money situation, you know?
Oh yeah. That's a good point.
You're lucky that I love Subway.
If anyone knows how to eat fresh, it's Megan. Anyway.
Yeah. So fucking fresh.
No, like it is insanely expensive.
And at that point, you are not supporting the creators. You are supporting the people that are taking advantage of the fact that these books are excruciatingly hard to find and very rare now because they are no longer in print, right? Yeah. So that's the only reason they cost that much. Like, find other means to get access to the material, or buy the D&D 5th edition version if you just want an introduction to give it a try, because it's actually quite affordable. I think it was only like $45 for the D&D module.
Is this the one that's called Adventures in Rokugan that's available on Drive-Thru RPG?
Yeah.
I did a cursory glance at it once a while ago before we ever talked about L5R, because I was wondering what happened to the old terribly named Oriental Adventures, because that's what it was in 3.5. And I was wondering if they were ever going to like adapt it to something else that wasn't offensive. And I ran across it there, and it had some pretty good reviews. Apparently it is adaptable enough, but I agree with you 100%. Just find a digital copy of it. I think you can buy the digital copy for relatively cheap. But don't quote me on that. I'm not sure where you would do that. So that's my answer. Play it. Don't be afraid to stretch out. It's actually really easy to learn, especially if you've got somebody that can walk you through it like we did. But what took us about 2 hours to learn would take, I think, the average group about 2 sessions to be able to learn the ins and outs of just how to run the game and the basic rules of. And then it's just details from there, right? So
yeah. Roman actually created like a little intro of how to play L5R campaign, and he's run the same campaign now twice for folks to like teach them how to play. And it's actually really cool because the way he did it was it takes place at a festival, and it kind of introduces you to different places of like aspects of L5R. But every time he plays with a group, he takes those characters and puts them into the world. So then the next time he plays them, those NPCs are now in the world the next time he plays with the next group.
That's
so
cool.
It's a constantly, like, the story is the same, but the world itself is constantly growing and changing. So just get yourself a forever DM. They'll do it for you.
Yeah. The answer to every question.
Wait a fucking second.
Yeah, you're welcome.
God damn it.
All right. At Yellow Belt asks, does Shinobi not exist in 4th? In the game I'm running right now, I have a Bushi, a monk, Shinobi, Shugna,
and a courtier. Did you want to answer that one, Kyle? You got this?
I also cannot answer this question.
All good.
I'm
Technically,
gonna take a
yeah.
stab and say no.
No, they do. So Shinobi do exist in 4th edition. It is very hyper specific to the Scorpion clan, though, in the Shosuro family. So it's only one family that has Shinobi. For those that are in the audience, Shinobi are technically like the trained assassins or like basically murderers of families. So they aren't commonplace, if that makes sense. So a rule that we've always kind of thought of when we talk about L5R is honor is everything. So when it comes to having assassins or folks that are going to kill people in secret or do things diabolically is technically not usually present in the world. But of course, depending on what family you're from, how you're raised, what clan you're from, obviously clans have to protect themselves. So some clans do have secret societies or secret groups that are trained in such a way that can help protect their people, right? So some of it's well known, some of it's not. So the only assassin group in 4th edition that is well known is the Shosuro family, which does have a shinobi assassin attached to it. So, and they're basically not necessarily labeled as assassins, but they're labeled as like infiltrators, or it's kind of from the family that builds spies, if that makes sense. So they're mostly just information gatherers, not necessarily overarching assassins and murderers. So always for the good of the clan and for the good of the empire. But that's why you probably don't see them that much, is because they're very specific to one place.
And you guys didn't really cover them in your L5R series, which I think triggered this question on YouTube, right?
Yeah, probably. I feel like we may have touched on it like for 2 seconds, maybe when we talked about the Scorpion clan, but I don't know how in depth we went into it, to be honest with you. Because technically, one of the characters I played was a Shosuro assassin. So
I know that you guys mentioned it in passing.
Yeah.
Because I recognize the word.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I don't think you spent any significant time explaining it like you just did. So
yeah, and to be fair, like I don't think we spent a lot of time explaining like the ninja either. I think we really focused on courtiers, bushi, and Shugenja.
There we are.
We did talk about monks a lot because we're Dragon Clan folk and we love the Dragon Clan, so we talked about monks a lot. But then there's also shinobi, and then also technically some clans just have straight up ninjas. So there are a couple of other classes in 4th edition you can play. But bushi, shugenja, and courtiers just tend to be your main ones. The other ones tend to be like minor training, more unwell known, or very hyper focused. Like again, monks are very much in the Dragon Clan. Shinobi are very much in the Scorpion Clan. And I feel like if Roman listens to the episode and I'm wrong about that, I'm gonna get punched in the face. So he'll correct me in the comments, so it's okay.
I feel bad for anybody that's gonna punch you in the face for being wrong, Megan. You're just gonna eat their fucking.
Yeah, he's made the mistake before.
For everyone who's concerned right now, there's no violence really. This is all metaphorical. No. Yeah, except when Megan.
We love each other.
Yeah, except when Megan hurts people, then that violence is real.
We love each other so much.
Whether he likes it or not, motherfucker.
All right. Our next question is from Blue Munya. Oh my god, that's really hard for me right now. How long does it take to make an episode from beginning to end? And what's the worst part of making an episode?
I feel like I know Adam's answer, but Kyle, I'm interested to hear yours.
Well, the worst part of making an episode is definitely the editing. I feel like Adam is also gonna say that as well.
Yeah, that's one of my top 2 fucking gripes, 100%. The other gripe being coming up with the pun names. That has sometimes I grind to a halt and it will fuck me up for 2 weeks trying to come up with something. And then you can always tell which ones I just kind of threw an answer at because we were recording in 10 minutes. Like,
yeah. You kind of painted yourself into a corner there. Like at the beginning, it was great, pretty easy. But then you get to like episode 300.
You know what? I'm still impressed every time I read them though. So like you're doing God's work in that.
Yeah.
The number of times that I've listened to people as I'm editing and I hear the reactions because I'm not in the room and they, for whatever reason, don't realize I'm going to edit it. And I hear someone under their breath go, well, that was fucking terrible. And I'm like, oh, motherfucker, let me reach through. Let me go back in time and reach through this fucking microphone.
Honestly, I would say scheduling is my most hated part about everything to do with the podcast. Imagine trying to get a bunch of people to play D&D. Someone always cancels. Now try and do that when you're doing a podcast. It's the same energy because we're the same people. It's the same group of people. So I love you all, but show up. And I'm the worst for it.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I am the worst for it. Oh man, I have a concern that we lost Adam.
Oh no, I'm here. I'm just being very,
Okay.
very quiet because I have nothing positive to say.
about that. I have nothing nice to say, so I'm not going to say anything nice at all.
I think he's still stewing about the people insulting his puns.
That's true. He's very upset.
It's been a real punishment, I can't lie. So
Hey, oh.
all right. So yeah, the honest answer here, the worst part of the episode, editing fucking sucks. Scheduling is the most frustrating thing. I'm gonna say about once a month, I have called Mieka in just exasperation going, the episode comes out in like 6 days and they've canceled this episode for the 5th time. And I can always tell which ones people are not interested in recording, because if it gets canceled, they will not offer another record date. They will just say, I'm not available, and see what happens, instead of, do you guys want to do it on Saturday? Right? Like, then they want to record, or they've done the prep and they're ready to go. But when it's, yeah, sorry guys, I'm not around, they're waiting for me to fucking replace them because they don't want to do the episode, and I know it. I fucking know it. So
I would like to say I am the worst for canceling, but I'm also the best for saying I'm not here today, but I'm here on these days. Do these days work? Like, come on.
You two are great for the reschedule.
Good.
Right?
So I just needed that validation. Thank you.
Well, to the point, Megan, where the entire Giants and Undead and a couple other things that are coming up, you have taken over the scheduling portion to take that off of my shoulders, and I trust you 100% on that. Like, you and Tyler really stepped up to help with the admin side of shit, because I was drowning in it for a while there. But the other half of this question is, how long does it take to make an episode from beginning to end? Somebody want to count on their fingers? Because I'm gonna just kind of spew this out loud if I can, without counting. Building a breakdown takes about half an hour to actually build, but another hour on top of that, where I have to do the research ahead of time before I can actually build the breakdown, which is kind of, for those of you who don't know, it's a loose skeleton of what the script is going to be, and then I let everybody go do their own prep, put it in their own words, put their own personality and spin on it, or just get confused and say, Adam, what did you mean by this? Which happens semi-frequently. So that's about an hour and a half just on that. It will take me sometimes up to a half hour to then name the fucking episode, so we're up to 2 hours then. Scheduling is an absolute nightmare. I put probably 14 to 18 hours into building a calendar that works in everybody's schedules. Some people are only available on weekends. Some people are not available on weekends. Some people are only available on Tuesdays. It has gotten very complicated, where I'm juggling 13 people's schedules, and I've learned a lot about people's lives. I know a lot about how people operate, except Kyle. Kyle is a mystery. And then he sits there. Sorry?
What can I say? I move in the shadows.
Yeah, need to learn those stealth rules, right? So yeah, I've got a pretty good handle on scheduling, but man, it takes forever to make sure that the right people are recording by the appropriate deadlines, and whether or not it's online or it's at someone's house, there's a lot that goes into it. So that takes hours, and so probably another 20 minutes per episode just on figuring out how the schedule is going to line out. Then, not including travel times to or from, when we record in person, the actual recording itself for an hour and a half episode, you guys roll in here, what, 7:30 and bail out about 9:45?
Yeah, it depends on the episode.
Yeah. Sometimes we show up, drink coffee for half an hour, record for 2 hours, and then hang out and drink alcohol for another half an hour. So, like, it depends on the day. And I feel like that is included in the time frame that it takes me to record an episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Like, I plan for that. And then there are some days where, because Kyle, you've got to drive for like an hour and a half sometimes, right? So there are some times.
Yeah, if you're counting there and back.
Yeah. So, but it's also like 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night. So you don't tend to hang around too long. And Terry bails out quickly too. So if I know I have you and Terry in person, you guys are out of here by like 9:15 sometimes. And I'm like, what am I doing for the next hour? This is when I sit on the couch and drink. So, but then the editing process happens. It takes about, what do you figure, Kyle? 10 minutes to master an episode, maybe?
Yeah. Honestly, it takes me, whatever length the episode is, it takes me 2.5 times that length to edit it.
Yeah. And then we got to get it online, and then I've got to scoop it up I do a listen through at about 4 times the speed, and everybody sounds like a chipmunk, just to make sure that there's no like egregious coughing or anything else because somebody got up and walked away to answer the phone for a minute. I honestly don't catch much anymore, but I used to catch stuff like 3 years ago, 2, 3 years ago. So I do that, and then uploading it and posting it takes about a half hour between the audio and the video. But then constructing the video takes about 10 minutes of work and then a half hour of rendering time, depending on the length of the video I'm making as well. And then once all that is said and done, I've got to actually make sure that all of the show notes are correct when it gets uploaded. And then I have to make sure that it gets posted appropriately. I'm always sitting there waiting to find out if there's an audio glitch. A lot of the listeners are pretty good at letting us know, so I can get in there and replace it the next morning. And then I got to answer questions that pop up on them on YouTube or the Patreon or whatever. So I don't know. What are we at now? 10, 12 hours for an episode?
Yay!
And so when you imagine, it might not be that much. It might be closer to 8 to 10. But when you're doing, sometimes we do 5 episodes in a week.
Yeah.
That's a full-time job, right? So yeah, that's how long that takes. And yeah, scheduling sucks. Editing isn't bad or hard. It's just time consuming, and you can't do anything else, right? So
yeah, I also have a bad attention span when it comes to listening to stuff. So there's a bunch of times in the editing process where I'll have just tuned out for like 15 or 20 minutes, and I'll have to go back and listen to it again.
I do that as well. I will get distracted because like my ears are going over here. When I'm sitting in front of a computer, my eyes can be prepping. I can be doing something and like using my time wisely as I prep other episodes or build breakdowns or work on the schedule, whatever it is. And then I will realize I got so engrossed in the shit that I'm doing that I have not paid attention for an hour, right? So yeah, I feel you on that one.
I just show up and record.
Well, okay, but here's my question for you guys then. How long does it take you guys to prep?
Depending on the episode, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours.
Yeah. When I first started doing this, I would spend, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 hours.
It's too much.
Researching and I know. I would like way overwrite my parts, and it would be like a script, and I would have to like read it word for word. Otherwise, it would entirely fuck me up. But now it's probably about an hour or 2 hours. If it's like research intense episode, it might be 3, but that also might be because I got lost down like a Wikipedia hole.
Yeah, that's fair. Honestly, so peek behind the curtain, I do not give the lore episodes out to anybody anymore because I know that they can take 6 hours plus to do. So I just eat that. I'm here at the computer editing anyway. I will just do that research myself. So I will take those ones. Those are the worst. For monster episodes, I look at the page the day beforehand. I write nothing down. And then if I have it, if we're recording online, I just put it up on D&D Beyond in front of me, and I riff off of it. I've done so many monster stat blocks at this point that I know what I'm looking at. So zero prep for monsters, like 5 minutes max, maybe. Which is why I tend to do the rules and the lore because they suck. They're a real time sink.
Yeah.
All right. So next question is also from Diggly Blue Moonia. Got it this time. What's an episode that you wish you could go back and re-record? Oh man, for me, anything within the first year of doing this podcast, when I was spending 6 hours just reading every single thing I could find on every website I could find about everything I was doing. And when I was just like so caught up in having like a script, because it was just, I don't know, looking back, it was like awkward.
Yeah, you never forget your first, you know what I'm saying?
Well, and poor Kyle started in the pandemic with the mob mentality episodes.
Oh yeah.
So there was no guidance. There was no sitting in a room with other people. It was just like reading like a fucking newscaster into a microphone, which it must have been so fucking awkward to start with.
What a strange vortex of time that was.
Right?
Holy fuck. Okay, weird sidebar story. So the other day I went to go make pierogies, but like we have a family recipe that I just didn't have the cue card for. But I remembered that during the pandemic, because we couldn't gather as a family during Christmas, my mom did a master class over Zoom and recorded it so that we could all together make pierogies at the same time. I was like, fuck it, I don't need that. And so anyways, I looked at the video and watched it and made pierogies the other night. And I found myself getting emotional and crying because we were talking about like everything going on in the world during that time. Because it was like mid 2020 when we did this, like, well, close to Christmas time. And like, it was the first Christmas we weren't going to be able to be together. Like, we're talking about like what we're all going to be doing, like who is making dinner, who's not making dinner. Are we seeing anybody? Are we not seeing anybody? And it was just such a weird thing to re-experience. And so I can't even imagine what it would feel like to re-listen to those episodes, remembering the room I stood in my partner's apartment, recording those on my MacBook. You know what I mean? Like, now all those memories are now flooding back, and now I don't want to re-record them, and I don't want to re-listen to them because it's such a reminder of that time. Sorry to pop off, but that's just suddenly like hit me in a weird place.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, honestly though, the whole video or your mom doing a masterclass over Zoom, that's really cute.
I fucking love that. You're like, that's so cool.
I know. And like the sad part was like, because it was my grandmother's recipe, like my dad was on the phone with her, like telling her where we were at in the class. And like, so I just like, I got emotional making those pierogies. And so I couldn't even imagine re-listening to some of these episodes and remembering where I was at life when I was making them. So, but yeah. Just,
But like, I hear you, but I think I've said this on the podcast before. My dad died on the first day of lockdown, right? We got home from the hospital at 1:30 in the morning and woke up to everything is shut down. So it was a bizarre period of time for me. But that was when you could only have like 6 people in your bubble. And Dan was the only person that I wasn't related to. Well, I guess Charlie as well, that I was seeing on a semi-frequent basis. And so we were recording the Mob Mentality episodes. And he told me about a year and a half afterwards, he's like, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just put the podcast on hold. And he's like, and when you came over to have a meeting about what we were going to do, he's like, the circles under your eyes, you look like a raccoon, and I felt so bad for you. I'm like, this guy needs something to focus on. So all of those episodes, I don't really remember recording.
Yeah.
When you say it's a vortex of time, like during that period of time, when I think of the lockdown, I only think about the armchair that I sat in. That is the only touchstone that I have for those 10 months because I was in like shock. Right, for the whole situation. And then except Dan calling me and being like, oh, so when are you coming over to record the next one? Right. And so those ones fucking weird.
Yeah, like again, they also weirdly, like, I didn't go through the similar like emotional turmoil as you did, but it was just, I lost my job, like I lost my career.
Yeah.
And I was unemployed for 9 months and I didn't know what to do with myself. And so like the podcast was literally the same thing. It was all I had, because we weren't playing D&D. We weren't doing a bunch of other things because we just didn't transfer to being online. And I'm glad we didn't. I feel like it would have ruined what we had. But I also just, the podcast was all I had, but I don't think I could listen to those episodes. I don't think I could. And I don't think I would want to redo them. Like it just feels too emotional at this point.
So back to the question then, Megan, what episode do you want to re-record?
The episode where we said farewell to Dan so I can tell him to go fuck himself. I had to bring the mood up. I'm sorry. I was way too nice to him in that episode. I should have been a lot meaner than I was.
You're going to just have to make up for lost time, I guess. Text him right now.
I am so excited because what most people don't realize is that you guys all went in for a bunch of all the lady mimics went in for a Airbnb for the wedding for that weekend. So you guys are all staying together and Dan is sleeping on your couch.
Yeah.
And while everybody else is going with a significant other, Megan and Dan are going to be the only ones flying solo that weekend, which means you guys are going to be paired together for like, I'm so looking forward to find out. Like,
I know.
Are you going to kill him?
Well, I mean, I need him to at least be my outdoor like partner for at least 24 hours and then I will murder him.
Okay.
So I need him for the bit and then I can get rid of him.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like that day before you put your dog down, you treat him really nice, give him steaks.
What's your last meal, bud? You know?
Yeah. And then take him out back.
Yeah, I can just picture Megan looking at Dan the day before the wedding. Do you want to go for a walk, bud?
You won't even know what it's about until this episode comes out. It'll be like, oh yeah, Megan, that sounds really nice. Let's get some fresh air.
So if I could go back and re-record any episode, I'd fucking kill the Meet the DMs episodes. They were awkward and nobody knew what we were doing. I would go back and kill every cold open for the first 30 or so episodes because the shtick, if you go back and listen to them, fuck, it's so embarrassing. The whole shtick was that 2 people would be having just a random conversation and the third person would walk in and try to get up to speed and drop some sort of like bomb on the other 2. And then we'd cut to opening credits and start the episode. but Terry and Dan couldn't wrap their brains around it. It was too much like improv and acting, and they just didn't want to do it. And so it's really stilted and disjointed, and we hadn't quite figured out the flow of editing yet. So like it's fucking bad. And then on top of that, during that period, the Fighters episode was terrible. The Druids episode, I took the hot take that no one should ever play a Druid. It was me kind of leaning into the idea of being the bad guy to make Dan have to defend it, but Dan didn't like Druids, so he didn't defend it. So I just shat on Druids for no reason for an hour and a half. We had a rocky fucking start. So I could go back and re-record the first 35 episodes and I'd feel okay about it.
All right. So last question for this one is from Jennifer, who emailed it in. Hi, I'm listening to your pod on Spotify from oldest to newest, and just hit the one where y'all talk about achievement-based leveling, December 2019, I think. Did you ever fully develop that system? I'd like to try it out.
So I remember this. Megan, did you play with us when we had the like achievements where we had a number of like printouts, and as you would do things like score a critical hit against an undead, you'd cross that one out, and if you got a certain number, like all of the ones in the section, essentially a bingo card.
Yeah,
there were like 100 different things you could do, and you were trying to cross them all off in sections, and you would get inspiration dice and all that.
Yeah.
And then eventually you would level every time you did it. But like, were you with us when
I was? Yeah, the first campaign I ever played with you guys, we had that system.
We never got any further on that because I didn't think it was worth following up on.
And it was broken. Like it was not broken in a way like it favored the players a little too much, because I think what ended up happening was I hoarded all of mine until the last like day of we played, and then I popped all of my inspiration dice to do whatever the fuck I wanted.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that now. You you rolled a D20, and then you just dropped so many D6s and D8s on top of that to hit a creature, right? It was insane.
I never missed in that last episode. So
no,
I think that's the only reason why I was successfully able to kill Casey's character and like almost murder Dan's character. So
yeah, you were a fucking powerhouse then. I hated it. I didn't like it. It was a neat idea that it was, but you're right. Everybody hoarded it, and I found that everyone was strategizing to check things off the list instead of playing the game.
Correct. That ended up happening quite a few times because Dan plays like that.
Yeah. And Terry was part of the group at that point too, and he was playing like that.
Yeah. So then when we switched to not that system and just use the handout one inspiration dice at the end of every session, but you can have a max of 3, or like per like type of roll. So you can only have 1 dex or 1 whatever save. That made it a little bit more balanced. And it also made you focus on what everybody else was doing, right?
Yeah.
So I liked that system better.
Follow-up question. Megan, how does it feel to have a rule made because of you?
It wasn't because of me. It was...
Well,
shut up. Just because I won D&D doesn't mean that tell me to fuck off. Oh, Atlanta.
I'm gonna get you a little like enamel pin that says I won D&D now.
Please do. I would take that. I would wear it with pride everywhere. Are you kidding? Oh man. All right, time for the next section. Let's roll dice. 15.
18.
7.
Adam, again. Go for it. Yeah.
All of these next questions for the rest of the episode, Lee Dog 22 just gave us a shit ton of questions, which every once in a while we get a big dump like this, and I always like that because there tends to be weird themes all the way through it. You can see where somebody's head was at. So this is fun. The first question that he asks is, after you have acquired, or she, it's Lee Dog. I don't know. Lee could be male or female. Anyway, after you have acquired the necessities of play, what are some things other than books that you suggest fletchling DMs purchase to enhance their games, i.e. minis, terrain, maps, etc.? That's a good question. Once you've got the books, you need a Google Drive. You need a minimum of 2 sets of dice and then a bunch of extra D6s. Even if you just scoop them out of a Monopoly set, just get D6s more than anything else. You can roll 4D8 by rolling 2D8 a couple times, but Fireball, I mean, you don't want to be scooping up dice over and over again.
Yeah, you don't want to be caught not able to use your fireball, right? You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's more important that you have organized notes in a notebook than just about anything else. Maps are not necessary because you can do theater of the mind. Same for minis, and I don't even operate with a DM screen most of the time anymore. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I just throw down the markers I need and my dice, and then I have the book sitting on a chair beside me. And I will just roll in front of you guys now. And I hide my notes from you guys on the chair beside me with the books. So that's it. Like, you don't really need much. When I started playing D&D, we had a giant Weddy Race map up on the wall, just a grid that was up on, I want to say it was Sean's wall, because we were playing at his house back then. And we would then take these little scraps of paper and we would write our names on them so they would fit inside one of the squares. We'd use blue tack, and then we would just move them around on the battle map. And we didn't even put lines for walls or anything. It was just, you are this close to the enemy who's over here, and everything else is done theater of the mind. Like, you don't need much. Fledgling DMs should not worry about spending the money. What they should do is invest time into watching videos, listening to podcasts, talking to DMs, playing as much D&D as they possibly can themselves, so that they can be as comfortable as possible with rules and new ideas and figuring out how to communicate with players. That's more important than buying anything.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. When I first started DMing with D&D specifically, the only thing I put extra money into, because I was already a player, so I already had dice, I already had all these things at my disposal, and I had minis, I had all that kind of stuff because I already played D&D. But when I switched to being a DM, the only thing I invested money in was random item cards, and then the random PC cards. I first, at one point, I think I actually borrowed a set from Adam when I was DMing a game, because I really wanted to be able to just pull out random NPC cards in case I just couldn't think of someone or think of a name, because that's the part that always worries me. If I don't have enough fleshed out, it ruins the moment. So those are the only ones for me that I want to, but you could also find resources online for like random character generators and that kind of stuff. So you don't have to spend the money, you could spend the time, like Adam is saying. So, but I found that to be very helpful to not have me panic about having to know every character's name all at once, all at the same time. So
yeah, I definitely use the random character generators all the time when I'm playing. I don't want to have to come up with NPC names. I just, like, for like the big main characters, yeah, I'll spend time like figuring out names. But for every person you run into at a market, I don't want to do all that. I don't know if you're going to spend money on something. I think it really depends on your group. Like, I played before with some group that you couldn't really do theater of the mind. Like, some people just can't grasp the concepts in their head. And I mean, it's not like a criticism. We all have different strengths and weaknesses.
Lee Dog 22's next question is, what is a helpful resource or website for DMs that you want to share? I cannot promote piracy, but I can promote DM's Guild and Drive Through RPG. They're both great resources for picking up third-party materials. I know I've said on the podcast before that people should go check out Lady Tiefling on Instagram. She does all sorts of great loot lists for what you can find on monsters. And join forums and subreddits and get involved in the community that way. Other than that, D&D Beyond, I didn't like it. I still am not a big fan of it as far as running a campaign off of it, but I have no problem using it to do my research and to do my prep. So I do use it for that. It's a good place to just have all of the books at my fingertips, or all the books that I use. So I guess the other one that I used to use, but I don't anymore because I just kind of have a head for it now, is Kobold Fight Club. Kobold Fight Club is just a tool that you can use online to like build your encounters to make sure the CR lines up appropriately. Because when you put two CR5 monsters together, they don't equal CR10. They equal like CR7 or 8, depending on the monster and the action economy. So it can be pretty useful to use that, but it's not flawless. So there are some things like spell lists which kind of get past it. So, but it's a pretty good resource.
Well, I mean, I'm also not going to promote piracy, I guess, at the end of the day. But yeah, I usually use Reddit, or I do use D&D Beyond, and the only thing that I really use it for is if I want to build a random NPC. I do use their generator system a lot, because I do find it's a little bit more intuitive if you want to have like an NPC fully built out and not just like the couple basics. Or if you're building out characters quickly, just want to build characters for like a one shot. I use D&D Beyond a lot for that.
Okay. I do promote piracy, but I'm not going to specifically name piracy things. There is a website that has come highly recommended to me from a few people called CoGM. And it's just really good for it. Has a bunch of random generators. You can keep notes, has dice rollers, a whole bunch of stuff like so you can just have one page open while you're running a game, and it'll keep a bunch of things going for you.
All right. I haven't actually heard about that one. That's pretty good. I know a lot of people use virtual tabletop as well. I can't comment on those. I have never used them. Kyle, you used them in your Thursday group for a while though, didn't you? Didn't you guys use
Which one? Yeah, we use Roll20.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's pretty good. I also make maps on Incarnate.
Oh, I've heard it's really good. I've not really messed around with it in a while, but I've heard that the latest updates have made it really excellent. So
yeah, it's pretty fun. Which it's kind of a steep learning curve, but once you figure it out, you can make some cool stuff.
cool.
And it also has a bunch of like community-based maps too that you can go through. So if you don't want to build a battle map for something, you're just looking for something themed, it has a lot of good options.
Another thing that I would point out is that you can use Pinterest to get a lot of inspirations for different kind of NPCs and locations as well. Because there are a lot of artists on there that will put their stuff up there for free for people to look at. I don't recommend using someone else's art without talking to them, but it's a good place to get an inspiration for, oh, I could use an NPC that looks like this, or we could go to a wizard's tower that looks like that, right? And so it's a lot of good inspiration I used to get off of Pinterest back in the day as well.
Yeah, it's a good place to start a mood board if you're starting a campaign.
Yeah.
I love a good mood board.
Moving on to the next question. Lee Dog 22 says, what is one of your favorite villains from pop culture? What aspect of them would you try to emulate in your homebrew villains? I don't know. I like subtle villains, very subtle, down to earth villains. The more outlandish and over the top and crazy they are, the less I tend to like them. Because I can see their fucking flaws. So I like villains that are flawed, and I can't come up with one off the top of my head, but just someone that, okay, Two-Face is one of my favorite villains from Batman because tragedy struck him twice in a row, and he has got a major issue now trying to find a way that the universe makes sense to him. Harvey Dent is a fallen hero, and he just wants to inflict the same kind of pain on others so that the universe is fair and balanced. But he can't be the one to do it. He's got to leave it up to chance. There's a lot of rules for him, but I find that really engaging, the fact that he is just a tortured soul that is lashing out against the universe. I think that's a lot of fun. And now that I say all this out loud, a lot of my villains have been tortured souls that are lashing out. So I would even hazard to say that our big enemy, our big antagonists have been tortured souls as well. So I guess that's my favorite, or that's my aspect that I'd be looking for.
Well, I love a good enemies to lovers story. So I would my villains I would play in mine would not be Kuth for our table. I'll just say that. But the only one that came to mind that like recently in my brain was actually Magneto. Because did either of you watch the updated X-Men cartoon that came out recently?
X-Men 97 was so fucking good. I didn't know how to handle it.
It was so fucking good to the point where like I bought Roman a shirt that says Magneto was right on it. Like Magneto, that kind of villain to me is like primo villain. That they're actually not evil. They just think that what they're doing is correct to the point of it is evil to some, right?
Yeah, it's not the purpose, it's the means in which they're doing it, right?
Correct,
it's the methods that are the problem. Fuck, wasn't X-Men 97 good? I didn't know anybody else that I knew in real life watched it.
We were obsessed. Obsessed.
Yeah, so was I. I was waiting, like I was up at 12:01 watching the next episode when it would come out. Like, fuck, was it good?
I don't know. I couldn't get into the animation style. It just wasn't for me.
I've got a lot of patience for different animation styles, so I don't know. I have never really had that be a problem for me. But I know that that's a common complaint for a lot of people when they watch, cartoons of any kind.
Yeah, I did really enjoy the new Batman Caped Crusader cartoon. It is very good. It's very 90s Batman kind of feel, where it's less real timey and more I don't know, kind of steampunk.
I've been desperate to get into it, but gearing up for the wedding and going away, I haven't had any time to watch anything on television. So
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's right.
Spend all your time locked away editing.
pretty much. What's your favorite villain, Kyle?
Man, I don't know. This is one of those questions that I wish I could have seen ahead of time because there's just so many. Like, how do I pick a favorite?
I just
Like-
love evil. Fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I love a good villain. Like, I don't know. I liked villains that are wronged and just go way too far in the opposite directions. So it's almost like, I don't know, they comically become the villain, whoever was a villain to them in the first place, kind of thing. Tortured souls. I think mostly when I write a villain, I stick to certain themes, right? Like it's love of power, greed, and
Just like the best washboard abs.
no, I'm
That's-
not Megan.
That's for me.
Yeah, right.
And then just Two-Faced, right? Like I like a good villain that is palling around with the good guys, and then just betrays them at the last second.
One of my favorite things in all of pop culture is whenever the bad guy and the good guy have to team up against something even scarier. And like Magneto's great for that, but Two-Face has done it in like the comics a bunch. And I love when the villain sets aside their maniacal plans to be like, hey, we've got an existential threat here. We're all going to work together. Lee Dog 22 again says, would you as a DM use diseases and curses even when the party can get rid of them easily? No, I don't fucking bother. Why am I going to waste my time on that shit? We have a certain number of minutes to play D&D in any given period of time. Why would I give them things that are easy to get through unless it serves some sort of narrative purpose, right? So if it's not a plot point and it's not a challenge and it's not going to make people enjoy the game better or be memorable, I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah, I don't mind throwing a disease or a curse here and there, and like that they have to deal with like for the day. I know that we've had some long-standing curses and diseases we've had in campaigns we played with you. But in like the ones that I have run, I don't mind it, like they're sick for the day or what have you. It's a good tactic to use if you need to take a player off the table for a day. Give them a sickness, give them an illness, give them a disease, so on and so forth. It automatically takes them out of play. So there's ways to use them that aren't necessarily just like boring, but I find them useful for other reasons.
Fair.
I mean, narratively, I think they can be a lot of fun. I think it does have to be kind of, you can't target a certain player. Like if you're going to target them with diseases, I think you got to target everybody unless it's, I don't know, one person drinks out of a poisoned well kind of thing. As for curses, what I like for a curse is something that doesn't look like a curse at first, right? It seems like it's some kind of boon and it slowly gets more and more powerful until they hit like the cliff and then it drops off and then they have to figure out what to do from here. And if they lean into the curse and they use it more, then it is going to be harder to get rid of in the end.
Yeah, that's fair. And again, I'm not saying I wouldn't use diseases or curses. I mean, we very, very famously at my table have a blood plague going around, right? I'm big on the idea of diseases and curses, but they have to be impactful, right? If it's something that you're just going to shrug off by the end of the encounter, I'm not wasting time on it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
But so all that to say, I agree with both of you guys. Everything you said is spot on. Those are
Thanks,
great.
Adam. Thank you for the validation. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Because I feel like I ranted and then you guys were like, no.
I would.
Lee Dog 22 says, how do you incentivize moving around during combat? Is there some formula or reliable trick you have found that works most of the time? Before I get into this, you guys have played at my table. Did you move much? Was there a
All
lot
the
of
time.
movement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
don't
ran away very bravely last session.
You did run away very bravely last session.
I just wanted to double check because I don't feel like I have a good bead on what is like if we do it a lot, if you guys feel like it's dynamic. I try to put it in there sometimes, but it's very simple rules. Like the environment changes in the middle of combat, therefore the players have to move, or the bad guy teleports away or runs away, therefore the players have to chase. The one that I found works the best to get people to consistently reposition is to have a mixture of melee and ranged combatants. And as long as the enemy is moving, the players will have to move as well, right? The player characters have got to shift because they no longer have cover, or they're not able to cover the distance in a single round. So they start to, there's a lot of repositioning in my games as well when there's a couple of enemies standing close to each other. And so we want to get away, or we want to get in between the two of them for whatever reason, so that when I kill this guy, I'm going to turn around and hit the other guy without having to waste any movement, right? So there's, I watch you guys do that a lot, which is counterintuitive in my brain. I'm like, don't get surrounded, but I mean, fuck, go nuts. It's not like you guys are ever close really to dying. So, but no, the other thing is,
I die every session. Like, let's be real. Like,
Megan, you're playing a monk like it's a barbarian. You have no one to blame but yourself.
I really am.
Really am. No, the other thing that I found works is you put minions out on the table, and so that as the minions fall, the player characters have to like move across the map to get to the next ones, right? And having waves of people come in or traps go off in the middle. Like, there's lots of ways. Just think about moving the targets or moving the environment, right? So those are my hints. What about you guys?
I mean, I don't really have much to add other than like difficult terrain is always fun to add in like different areas. The other one is if you have enemies that have pushback abilities, that can be always fun, or if it makes sense for them to have one, homebrew it that they have it. Like if you're asking this question because you're struggling with, you want them to move around more, that's one way to do it. Or have grappling and dragging abilities. Like there's nothing worse, and like it happened to us a lot where there would be like shrubs or plants or things with vines that would grapple us and pull us away. That would cause us to have to reposition so that it would put our friendlies in a better position, right? So there's monsters you can use that will encourage movement.
Yeah, like a roper, for example, will encourage that.
I think you guys covered most of the bases pretty well. Terrain that changes. So I don't know, like fire arrows and exploding barrels. Cover is a good one too. I assume this is mostly in regards to ranged characters. So being able to attack from a new direction, so waves pretty much is a good one to do.
So just to be clear with ranged characters, your enemies, if you are playing a bunch of ranged, like you as a DM are playing a bunch of ranged NPCs fighting the player characters, it is perfectly fine for you to duck behind 100% cover, and then on your turn, either stand up for half your movement or run out for behind cover, take a couple pot shots, and run behind cover again. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. What this is going to do is force the player characters to either move or reduce their entire turn to a single held action, a readied action, right? Which means they're not going to get off a bonus action. They're not going to be able to really utilize their reactions, right? So this is going to be a way that kind of shuts them down as you guys jump in and out, as your enemies jump in and out of cover. At some point they're going to have to cross the barrier, because very rarely do the bad guys come to the good guys in D&D. Usually the good guys go to the bad guys, and if they can't make any progress across the map because you've got a bunch of archers or spellcasters who are hiding, I'm sorry, I said hiding, I don't mean that. They just have full cover. You don't need to hide in order to not be hit. You just have to have full cover. Hiding is just so that you can't be found when someone tries to perceive you when they normally would perceive you, right? But if you're behind cover, you can't be targeted. So just put in trees and barriers.
Fair enough.
Yep.
All right, let's roll dice for the last round of questions.
I think it's just your turn by default, Megan.
What?
Yeah, that's right. You heard me.
I rolled a 16, so let's see if fate has that in play.
4.
I'm going to say 3.
You're all a bunch of lying liars, and I know it. Well, the first question is for you, Adam. What techniques do you use to keep your cool? Well, this is from Lee Dog as well. I feel like this is the last batch from them, so just so folks know at home. But yeah, this question for Adam. What techniques do you use to keep your cool demeanor while DMing? Do any other hosts have things they do to keep themselves focused, calm, or fooling their players into believing that everything is going according to plan? I mean, technically, I could answer this first because it's my role, and then Adam, you can just say your big speech if you want to. But yeah, I would say the easiest way is to, like, if you need a minute and you're trying to figure stuff out, just take a beat, go to the bathroom, get a glass of water, just say that you need a drink, or start asking random questions at the table, like buy yourself a little bit of time if you need to, and that kind of like keeps things flowing without interrupting the actual gameplay. Or just inspire a conversation between your players, or have them like do their planning. I like to sit back and listen to my players do their planning. I remember at one point in my L5R campaign that I ran for these folks, we went in 3 different directions. So if you want to talk about splitting the party in 3 ways, I was not planning on that happening, but I was like, yeah, we can make that work. Like I have all these areas slightly fleshed out. Like let's do that, right? So I would say that that's my biggest one, is that if you just need a minute to like reconfigure your thoughts, just naturally go to the bathroom, take a drink, what have you. Like everybody's there to have fun. It's never really going to be your fault if it goes one way or the other. I think it kind of falls in the same way as regular public speaking does. No one knows you fucked up but you. So, or no one knows that you're fucked except for you. So just kind of keep that in mind as you go. But I don't know if Adam, if you have more expertise tips than I do, or is Kyle next?
That would be me next. So for me, I find that, nothing reduces my stress like cattle prodding a chud. But other than that, just
What the fuck, Kyle?
Well, man, sometimes you gotta
Wow.
do what you gotta do.
Wow.
I have not heard a random reference to Chud in a fucking decade. Thank you for reminding me of that movie.
You're welcome. I gotta say, chud is a great all-purpose word. Just when you want to insult somebody, but you don't want to go too far. Chud is a good like medium ground.
Also, people can act in a chudly manner, and everybody knows exactly what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, other than that, I just don't get too stressed out about it, right? Like, first of all, be open and willing to change tack on a dime, right? Don't get too set in this is how I want it to go. And if it doesn't, everything falls apart, right? Players are crazy sometimes and they are unpredictable. And no matter how hard you try to plan and think about eventualities, they're always going to surprise you. And like, that's part of the fun of the game. But yeah, it can throw you. So like Megan said, just be willing to take a minute and step away and be like, okay, I just need to refresh my area or like think about how I want to address this, right? There's no sense in rushing, and you don't need to rush, right? Like you should be around friends when you're playing this game, right? And so everybody's you're all in it together.
Yeah, actually, that leads directly into my point. I am another player at the table, right? We do like to draw the line between Dungeon Master and players, but I am still playing D&D. I'm another player at the table. I should be having just as much fun as the others. And so when they get in trouble and we end up like facing down the idea of character death, I'm just as upset as anybody else that did. Megan can tell you, like, I get real quiet and real fucking serious when shit goes wrong. But when things are popping off and everyone's being creative and funny and I want to sit there and be creative and funny with them. So I don't often say no unless it's a stupid fucking question, right? But like, for the most part, if they want to do something that's thinking outside the box and it derails my plans, I've got a billion plans. I know my world inside and out. I know how the characters within it would react. And I know that there are more dangers around the corner if they get past this one. There will be future puzzles. If they solve it in one quick go, I celebrate with them. Congrats, you guys got it on the first round. But I will try to, like, Megan has seen it where I reveal this big riddle, and then Dan or Charlie or someone goes, "Oh, it's the moon." And I'm like, well, fuck, I guess you guys just beat me on that one, huh? And then I move on, right?
It happens all the time to poor Adam. Like, I do not envy the table that he has to DM in terms of our group dynamic, because we have someone who is skilled at every portion of D&D somewhere, right? Like, it's not a thing that I envy for this man. But yeah, I do notice like the change in tonality when things start going awry. But like, as a player at your table, I see that as you matching our energy level.
Yeah. Like,
not necessarily like that your body language is now telling me that you have no idea what's going on. It's you being in the moment with us, right? Like, I will say that is definitely what it feels like as a player. So
yeah, and I will say that there are times when I get when my players are sad in the moment, I'm sad in the moment with them. When I pull the rug out from under them as a dungeon master, I'm sitting there smiling at them, because what that does is it enrages them even more.
You're correct.
So I don't really go too stone-faced. unless I've got an NPC that's lying. And the best way around that is to just decide in this moment, because I'm role playing, I'm acting in this moment as this character, and I'm looking someone else square in the eye. The best way to lie is to tell the truth. I'm choosing that this NPC is lying. I can choose that they're telling the truth, knowing that in 3 or 4 minutes, I will then change my mind and retcon that to that being lies the whole time. So all I do is tell the truth. That's it. That's how I lie to my player characters. Whenever someone has got, you guys just saw all the hags, right? And there was like 31 hags and the 6 of you guys. And it was tense, right? Here are these super powerful creatures that could squash us like bugs. And we apparently have a deal with them. And Charlie's popping off. That wasn't the fucking deal. You fucking owe me. This isn't the right way, right? And the hags are just staring them down saying, look, this is how it's going to be. Because they're confident, they're in control, and they're not scared of the party.
Yeah.
They should be scared of the party. The party will kill them eventually. This is Dungeons and Dragons. The hags will not live to the end of the campaign. I'm fairly certain. You guys will come back and at level 20 or 21, because we're going epic levels, and you guys are going to fucking kill them. So, but as it stands now, I tell the truth. So now that I've said all that, there are only 3 things at a gaming table that will make me fucking angry. The first one is coaching. Stop telling other people how to have fun. Let them do it their own way. If they ask for help, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But stop coaching. I have had to say a number of times where I have dropped all pretenses and called the player out of the table. It's usually Dan, Charlie, or Dave who I've had to do that to, where I'm like, hey, it's always the guys that need to coach, right? I don't know what the fuck that's about.
How strange. Men, am I right?
Well, they're just splaining to you what you ladies need to learn. So.
I know, clearly. But to be fair, it's usually not Casey or either being mansplained to. Like, if I actually...
No,
well...
it is the 3 of them arguing with each other, honestly,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
so,
it usually is, yeah.
But stop coaching. Just because you played this class before doesn't mean you know how this character is going to run shit. Leave it alone. My next thing is metagaming. I allow a lot of metagaming at my table. You guys should be able to figure out the ebb and flow of how this game runs and make intelligent decisions based on it. I recently put you guys all up against trolls. Everybody knew how to defeat a troll without ever learning it in World. Fine. There's nothing I can do about that. But when someone sits back and says, yeah, guys, I don't think this is going to happen because Adam wouldn't do it that way. We're no longer in the world. You've stepped outside the game to question my methods and motivations. And that annoys me because I want an engrossed world, right? So,
yeah.
So I see this most often when players get frustrated and they're like, "Why are you attacking me?" I'm fucking not, man. I'm just here. So I'm facilitating. I'm not gunning for you. And the last one, and again, I'm going to put this directly on Dan, Dave, and Megan. You 3 are the ones that pull focus at the table. If we're in the middle of a moment, it's going to be one of you 3 that pops off with something else. Whether it's Dan and Dave throwing Oreos across the table, or Dave trying to play footsies with someone, or Megan answering texts on her phone in the middle of a fucking session.
Yeah.
Or Dan responding to work emails at 7:30 on a Sunday night. This stuff starts to annoy me when I see that it's affecting other players, right? So, and honestly, Megan, you're not that bad about it. I'm just... Yeah,
I know I do it. It's fine.
No, it's not fine. That is the fucking point I am making.
No, Megan, stop. Megan, no. Honestly, it's like I'm going to say about 25% of the time, it is me looking up a D&D rule.
I know it is.
But I will say that the other 75% is sometimes my social life is kind of popped off in the last little while. But I would say 25% of the time it's me being like, what the fuck do I get for being an ascended dragon monk again?
And
every time.
And I can always tell if your thumbs are active, right? If it's your finger, you're scrolling. If it's your thumbs, you're yelling at someone. So
it's true. I do tend to yell via text on a regular basis. So my love language. Oh, I'm drawing these ones again. I'm so not used to being the one reading the questions right now. Okay, all right. Well, moving on to the next question. Whatever happened to the Wizard's Tower series? I can't answer this question. I feel like this is an Adam question.
Yeah.
So 2 things. One, it was always supposed to just be a trilogy. We were just going to do it for the first 3 years. And for April Fool's Day. Every one of them came out on April 1st. And the idea was that we would run these chaotic actual plays every year on April 1st. Then the problem became that we had too many hosts, so we couldn't figure out who was going to be doing it all. So we started to cycle through, and we'd have different people playing, but the expectations were different. Remember, we also had the Christmas episodes as well.
I do. Didn't Kyle and I DM one of those Christmas specials?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Yeah, we started doing like round robin hot seat stuff, and it was so chaotic, and people which would show up in unique moods. They wouldn't understand what the premise is because they don't know what the whole storyline is. Even the DMs didn't know what the storyline was because they were only in charge of 1/3 of it. And we can't tell them what to do, otherwise we're going to railroad them into it. So we'd say kind of like this, and then hopefully everybody would communicate amongst themselves, and it just didn't work. I found that the more of these we did, the more chaotic it became. And if I could be completely honest, I sat down with Dan one day and I said, we need to stop doing these because we are a panel of dungeon masters, and this is so chaotic that we just look like we're scrambling around like a bunch of clowns. We're not DMing well. We're forgetting basic rules and whatnot because we're caught up in the ridiculous Santa adventure or whatever ridiculous voice that we were not prepared for that someone else is doing at the table. And so we couldn't keep up with the chaos, and it made the quality of the actual episodes drop. And I wasn't very happy with the last couple of them that we released. And so when I said, I don't want to do this anymore, Dan said, are you asking me permission to not have to spend an entire weekend prepping on a Saturday and then running a 7-hour campaign where I'm not even allowed to do half what I want to on a Sunday, and I got to be on my best behavior, and it's D&D without snacks? Sure, I'll step back. I have no problem not doing these anymore. If people want
Are you saying it made us look...
Yes, finish that sentence. And the answer is yes.
Are you saying that it made us look unprofessional?
Just a lot a bit. So I will say this. If people wanted to actually listen to an actual play, to listen to us actually DM episodes and stuff, we will have when I get back from the wedding, we're going to add a couple more people to our regular group of idiots on the main podcast. I think there are 3 people that are joining us, not the least of which is Elwin, which is going to be great. And we will have 15 people. I'm sure we can put together 5 of them to play D&D for a 1-shot or a 2-shot or something.
And do it right. Yeah.
And do it properly. But that will be one person DMing, doing it properly with like 3 months of prep work and notes and stuff because we want to do it properly. Tyler wants to do music for these as well. Like, we've got the interest on our side, but I can't facilitate it right now. So, and I don't want to go back to the chaos.
Yeah.
All good.
That's fair. I remember the Christmas one, and it was, I don't know how much D&D we actually got done because it was mostly just cracking jokes the whole time.
Yeah, it was just
a riot, but
it was a lot of fun, like at the end of the day. But as an episode, I can imagine that it was just absolute nonsense for anybody who had to listen to it.
Yeah.
But
and to be fair, I think that I'm hypercritical because I had to edit those episodes, and getting rid of the crosstalk and the chaos that are around and people just forgetting details because no one's taking notes. No one's taking it seriously. It was a lot of fun in the moment, but the post-production was not great, and the actual posting of it, not something I'm really happy is out there on the internet.
Yeah, I think you told me like after it when you look at like the editing, it was just like red bars the whole way across.
Yeah,
like the sound quality must have been awful.
Yes, it was very, very, very hard to get it to not be clippy as all hell.
Yeah, well, that's that.
Yep.
All right, next question from Lee Dog 22 is, what do you keep inside your DM screen? For me, it is usually conditions. Rules is a big one that I will always keep in no matter what screen that I have. Sometimes I'll have little mini maps if I know that there's like a large space that we're going to be wandering through, like so I know what way the forests are, what way the mountains are, that kind of thing. Just like little wayfind points. And then any random, not random, but my actual NPCs, like lists of the ones that are actually going to be within the storyline and storyline base. And then again, one of the things I mentioned that I picked up was the random NPC cards and stuff like that. I'll always keep those behind my DM screen. But other than that, it's my notebook with all my notes in it, or my laptop. I usually bring my laptop as me for my note taking. That'll usually sit there behind me with me, but other than that, I don't go too ham. I just need it there so I don't have to flip through pages to look up what grappled is again, or what it takes to jump across a river, or like that kind of stuff, right? Like I like having that stuff at the tip of my fingers. So that's what I keep. What about you, Cal?
Conditions as well. Definitely that. Cover rules. Page numbers like that I'm gonna need during the day, and I'll normally have it organized by, I don't know, what I assume the order they're going to run in for that day, right? Like if I think I'm going to run into a certain spell or monsters, stuff like that. And then other than that, a laptop and a notebook.
Yeah, I mean, conditions are always great. The other thing is exhaustion levels, something that you should have on the inside of a DM screen. Honestly, at this point, by the time that you've been on as many fucking episodes as I have, and you've been running a campaign for 7 years, there's not a whole lot of rules that I keep behind the DM screen, to the point where I get rid of the DM screen, like I said earlier. But what I do keep on hand is my homebrew crit tables, so that they're right there for me to grab, as well as any minis that I've got prepped for later in this session that I don't want the players to look at ahead of time. And so I don't know, not much else other than that. Every once in a while, I'll roll a die behind the DM screen, but that's usually when I'm trying to roll something to find an outcome that the players don't even know what I'm rolling for. Like, for example, if there's an NPC who has got to make up their mind about who they're going to be most hostile to at the table. I've got 5 players. I will just divide a D10 into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth, and then roll it behind the DM screen. I rolled a D10. I know what it means. This does not impact anybody at the table. I don't need to roll it in front of them, and they're going to ask, what was that, right? So for the most part, I don't even do that anymore. So I don't know. I think it's interesting when people keep behind the DM screen, but for the most part, I know my world and I know most of the rules. All of that is about to fucking change with the new rule set that's come out. So, so we'll see if I have a different answer in a year.
Yeah, all of our DM screens are getting changed up.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. What is some homebrew house general rules you have that you think other tables would benefit to know? This could apply for in-game or above table circumstances. Don't be a dick, I think is just always my rule. And if you're going to be a dick, make sure it's with the right people. That's my above table circumstance, I guess.
We're all dicks at our table to each other, but it's
the right people.
It's mutual. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're playing with a new table, don't be a dick. That's all I gotta say. I don't really know. I'm trying to think of just like generalized fun, how to play and how to have good game rules that we tend to have. They're kind of like unspoken. Like I would like to say that if you are like, I mean, this goes against everything that I know and because I text a lot. If someone else is having an emotional moment, sit there and watch it and be there with them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If someone is having an emotional moment, don't interrupt them. Like, it's not about you sometimes. It's something that's hard for a lot of D&D players to remember. You're not always the hero. Sometimes it's somebody else's story. Those are just some like general like at the table rules that I'd have. I know that this is probably more geared towards like homebrew, how to play the game rules, but I feel like those are just some things that like are like the above table circumstances that you want to remember when playing at a table with human beings. Is that you're all human and that you're not going to know every rule, and don't make fun of somebody if you know that they don't want to be made fun of if they don't do something right. So don't embarrass somebody. But
especially when they're trying something new, right? That they haven't, like maybe someone's trying out a voice for the first time.
Yeah.
And they've never done it before, right? Like let them do it and encourage them. Be each other's wingman at a table.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Kyle. I laughed the shit out of your last accent that you did, but I feel like
what would you say that you said? I think it just gave me PTSD.
From Dan's character. But I encouraged it. I said, you pop off, King. Like, you do your thing. But yes. How dare you?
Kyle, the context you're missing is that Dan used that accent for the first 3 sessions and then slowly got more and more relaxed on it until he doesn't have one now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He acclimated into everybody else's non-accent usage, unfortunately. I think he sometimes still uses it, but it's definitely not as strong as it was in the first couple of days. But,
oh yeah, he was straight up Dukes of Hazzard there for a minute.
Yeah, it was so funny.
Yeah, when I came along, he told me he was trying to class it up.
Well, he was around like 3 princesses at that point. Like he really had to step up his game. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You just start doing.
She's all that as character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's gonna take off his glasses, do some sit-ups, and he'll be just fine.
Yeah.
And Kyle, you were next.
Yeah, man, you can make the edgiest edgelord that ever edged, but make your characters want to work in a group, right? Like, I don't know how many times I've heard horror stories of people making these characters and just being like, I'm gonna go alone and do my own thing. Like, come on, we're here to play together. There's supposed to be a little bit of cooperation. Work with me, right?
Yeah. Like even in this last campaign that I'm playing with my friend Cole, Roman and I's characters did not get along because his character kept wanting to go in one very specific direction for his own story. And my character was like, we have a mission we're supposed to complete, and you are a part of this mission. Stop being a dickwad. To the point where it did come to a head in our last episode that we had, where we just started yelling at each other at the table. But at the end of the day, it was part of his character's growth that those moments happened. And then having that moment, basically my character became the fridge character for his character to suddenly be like, no, I see what's going on. Like we'll follow the right path. Right. But some role players aren't willing to go that far into convincing another character's player to join the group. Some people will just let it happen where they're avoidant and allow them to just disappear off the face of the earth, right? So it's a hard balance to have if you build your character specifically to be isolated. Like that is the hardest thing to do if you build a character that way.
Yeah, if you're gonna do something like Roman did, I mean, I think it's also worth having that discussion with the table beforehand, being like, hey, I would like to have this kind of growth for a character to, I don't know, let everybody in on a secret. Character secrets are generally bad to have at a table.
Yeah, and it was done really well because our DM they were kind of co-DMing where our DM knew what his backstory was and why he was doing what he was doing. So he was able to help mitigate and drive that into a specific direction. So the conversations were actually being fruitful and useful and not just combative. But if a DM didn't take the time to do that, or I understand where that's coming from and do that bit of a let's drive your story in this direction, that could have gone sideways so fucking fast for a new group, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Anyways, Adam, what do you think? Home rules, general rules, above the table circumstances?
Above the table circumstance, my rule that I tend to enforce, although I haven't had to in a very long time, is if you're going to look up a rule at a table, it is for clarity's sake. It's not for argument's sake. Arguments happen outside of the session. A DM will say, we're ruling it this way for now, and in the future, we will discuss it and maybe change that rule in future sessions. But for now, this is how we're doing it. Otherwise, leave the books alone, unless you're looking up how your spell works, or you're looking up how your class ability works, or the druid trying to find the next thing to wild shape into, right? Like, there are reasons to have the books out. Clarity, not arguments. And when it comes to the in-game stuff, I would say my rules are pretty straightforward. I don't track how many hit dice get recovered during a long rest. It should be 50%. I don't track that shit. I remind my players every once in a while, and if they forget, I don't care. It rarely comes up. I don't track encumbrance. I don't make my players track the amount of time it takes to do stuff. I, as a dungeon master, control the general world around me, which means that I can choose whether or not the economy or the price of something is going to be higher or lower. I tend to have a general idea, but I don't have hard and fast rules and hand out charts for my players to worry about, because that's not playing the game and telling the story anymore. That's following rules. So make sure that your game is fun to play. If you've got too many rules that are too noodly, then people will stop having fun. But again, that comes with the caveat that some people are power gamers, some people are rules lawyers, and that's why they play D&D. And if your table plays that way and they like doing it, they actually enjoy it, then sure, leave it in. Your table is your table. Make it yours any way that you want. The one thing that we've gotten rid of at our table, and I keep toying with the idea of bringing it back, is the handing out of inspiration at the end of a session.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like you guys need it. You're already powerful, and with 6 people sitting around a table, it's not like you're ever in any real danger.
And we work well together now. I think that one of the big things that old inspiration dice thing did was it forced us to pay attention to what was happening at the table and celebrate each other's wins. Whereas I think that now that we've played for so long together, that part happens naturally.
Yes. The only outliers of that now are Dave and Mieka, because they just miss so many table games, right? So I feel like they could probably benefit from it when they're at the table, but it's so infrequently and it's up in the air, and I'm not going to bother revisiting this until I can get consistency from either of them. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, technically we answered the next question, but I don't know if we have any other thoughts or opinions on it. The next one is a little bit more about what are some things that y'all consider common courtesy when regards to TTRPGs. I feel like those are all good common courtesy ones that we already did. But,
I got a list of things that are good for just general tabletop role-playing games outside of D&D.
Hey man, pop off, King.
Snacks are to be shared.
Snacks are to be shared, but drinks not necessarily. If you're going to bring drinks for everybody, make sure that everybody takes turns. A DM spends a lot of time doing prep and should not be expected to contribute to the snacks and food as heavily as everyone else. That should not be an expectation. If they do, that's fine, but they put in more money and effort than anybody else does, except maybe the person hosting. The person hosting should also potentially be exempt from having to put that time and money and effort in, because they've got to clean, not before you guys get there, but also after you guys leave. Every time that I play D&D in my house on Sunday night, I spend an hour cleaning up, putting the table back and everything else. And when Dan was doing it, when we were playing at his house, I would tell him regularly, don't bother to get snacks, don't do this, right? And he would say, guys, I just don't have time to pick up snacks today. I've got to vacuum the room again. We're like, yeah, man, that makes fucking sense. So understand that people contribute in different ways. Megan, you give rides, right?
I do, yeah.
And as far as I know, you don't ask for gas, right? So everyone contributes in different ways. Be aware of it and be appreciative. And everyone should contribute in some way to the overall experience from everybody.
Yeah, it's really cute though. Casey, at least once a year, will give me like a $25 or $50 gas card. Because I pick both Charlie and Casey up every time as whenever I'm playing. So, but I don't mind it. I'm driving anyways. They live near me. So, but yeah, could leave them to the wolves if I felt like it.
I think you should just once, just to prove a point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done it to them a few times when I cancel coming to D&D at like 10 a.m. before the session. So.
All right, so that brings me to my next thing for common courtesy. Now that you've said that, you've segued nicely into it, and
you're welcome.
And I will say this: life happens, and you are not always in control of it. Of when things get in the way of Dungeons and Dragons. Megan, your life is a little chaotic, especially on Sundays. But when it becomes chaotic, you let us know as early as possible. As soon as you know that you're not going to be able to make it, you let us know. You don't wait until 10 minutes beforehand, right? It's never a surprise. My comment is there's a social contract that you make with the rest of your D&D party or your Call of Cthulhu party or your board game party, whatever it is. There's a social contract. We all get together to do this. If you cannot make that a priority, then you need to step back and say, hey, don't rely on me, because when we were doing board games all the time, we had 6 to 7 people showing up. We couldn't play 4-person games, right? Until I started to realize that a couple of people were just no-showing very consistently. So it would have been nice to know that we could have busted out some 4-player games or gone out and bought them and learned the rules and stuff. There's a bunch of stuff on our to-do list that we just never did because we thought that we would have a different sized party. Make D&D a priority because you've agreed to make it a priority. Don't just no-show. Don't last minute cancel. Look, life happens, and it's going to, I myself have last minute canceled on things, but I also know when a D&D game is about to fizzle and when the group is about to disband because people don't make it a priority. When you show up late because you had to go to the gym after work, and that's always a consistent thing, yeah, I'll be 20 minutes late, then you're not making it a priority. I'm not saying make it the priority, but make it a priority and do your best to get there. And then my last thing is, do you guys agree with me on that? Feel free to push back. I feel like
Oh yeah, especially if it's always consistently on the same day. It's easy to attempt to plan around those random, momentary issues that occur. Like we play every second Sunday for a while, and then every Sunday at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yep.
If I have something else I need to do for the day, I have all day to figure out how to make my day work. And I've done it where sometimes I'll plan it where I'm like, okay, well guys, I'm gonna make it to D&D by 4:30, but I'm not gonna be able to give rides. But I will be there and I'll drive everybody home, right? Like I still try and plan my day because I know that D&D is in the evening and it's easier for me to have a lunch with somebody if a social engagement is required. Or if I want to go to the gym, I go to the gym in the morning. We all know I don't go to the gym, but if I had to plan it, that's the way I would plan it.
if you had to go talk to someone named Jim, you would do it in the morning.
I would absolutely do it in the morning.
Violenta. Anyways, I do agree. I am pretty bad about it because my life is chaotic, but I do try to be respectful to people around me, and I think that's all that anybody's asking for. So
one of the things, just to give an example, is Dave. We know Dave has in the fall, he is very, very busy. Sundays are not only the day that he coming back from hunting or camping or whatever, but it's also NFL, and Dave is big into fantasy football. He's in multiple leagues. He is very invested in watching games. And as a matter of fact, before he goes down to the wedding, he's stopping off in Pittsburgh to meet up with someone from one of his fantasy leagues who he's never met before to go to a Steelers game. And then he's going to continue on down to the wedding, right? So he's very invested in that. So I tell him as the summer comes to a close, so I will not be planning encounters around your character. I'm going to essentially just have you guard the wagon or hang back and investigate other things. And if you want to get invested between sessions, we can do midweek content. But I am not expecting you to be at the table. If you are available and you want to, please come join us. You're more than welcome, and we will just have you sit in. But for the most part, you're not getting any storylines. There's not going to be character development. I'm not working you into this campaign. I just don't have the energy to put into it just to have it fizzle because you didn't show up for the fourth week in a row. And I'm not bitter about that. That's just us communicating, which I guess brings me to my last point is Dungeons and Dragons is about listening and it's about respect. That's common courtesy right there. You should be observing and paying attention to the state of everyone around you. I don't just mean emotional state, but I mean sometimes people burn out. Where I had a player in my evil campaign a few years ago where he would show up and we were playing at his house, and he would show up 10 minutes after we would start playing D&D. He would say, no, just go ahead. It's all right. Don't pay attention to me. And then we're playing at his dining room table as he's making dinner. He goes and has a shower because he was working a physical job. And he would sit down an hour and a half into the game and say, all right, so what are you assholes doing? And then he would just pull focus. He wouldn't listen to anybody. He wasn't invested in the storyline. And it's one of the main reasons why I said, fuck it, I don't want to play this anymore, right? Like, it's rough that his wife had to let us in so that we could sit down, and then he would dick around and pull focus and not be invested. I don't want to do this anymore. So listen and respect, and don't be afraid to communicate if something's not working for you.
very strong, very strong.
Don't be a chud.
Okay.
Don't act in a chudly manner.
I've not heard Chud until this episode in my adult life, I'm pretty sure.
Well, you're welcome.
Do you not know the movie Chud?
No, actually, I don't even know what that is.
Do you want to handle this one, Kyle, or do you want me to pop off again?
No.
Honestly, I don't know what the movie is either.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna Google it right now.
It's a movie from 1984 about like sewer monsters that would come out and eat people. And it stood for it's from 1984. It was a bad like puppet stop motion bullshit, right?
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Yep, Chud.
Ew.
Nice.
It is not a good movie. It is a shit movie, but it is one of those ones that like when somebody says that word out in the wild, I'm like, oh my God, have you also seen this fucking terrible C-grade movie from 1984?
There is also a Chud 2 called Bud the Chud.
Hey, John Goodman's in it.
Oh fuck, I forgot that. I haven't seen it in like 20 years, but I look back fondly on it. It's not as good as Gremlins, but it's definitely better than Critters.
Good to know. Right. I will probably still not watch this.
Megan, I want you to know that you're making the absolute correct decision.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. Again, thank you for the validation. I really needed it. All right. Take us home, Kyle.
All right. I was just looking at that movie. I think I might have to watch it at some point.
Don't do it.
If you're one of those people that likes movies that are so bad they're good, Chud might be on your list. But it was done seriously. They tried to do a good job. It was just somewhere around the quality level of Leprechaun 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's got like a decent cast in it, which is kind of surprising, but I don't know. It's probably one of those, like, there was definitely cocaine involved.
Well, look, Jennifer Aniston started off in a Leprechaun movie. Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger started off in Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation. Like, a lot of actors that end up being good start in terrible fucking movies.
All right, interesting. All right, well, thanks for listening to another round of mailbag questions on the It's a Mimic channel. If you'd like to ask us questions that we'll definitely answer no matter what, or you can reach out to us through the mailbag post in the subreddit at r/It's a Mimic. Hit us up through Facebook or Instagram. Send us messages through the website or join our Patreon, which has a Discord channel dedicated to mailbag questions.
It's first come, first served. So get those answers in ASAP. We already have a handful of overflow questions for the next mailbag in 3 months.
And again, thanks for listening and supporting us at It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
I have one more question for you guys.
What's up?
So you know, every once in a while we do one of these like pop culture mailbag episodes where we get 20 questions on the same fucking IP, and then
Yeah, man.
we scoop some people together to ramble about it.
Mhm.
Is there a series of movies or a television show or something that you would love to pop off about?
Twilight.
I'm not sure the Venn diagram of our listeners and Twilight lovers
Ah!
has a large center, but
We should just do it on vampire movie culture.
shit, that'd be all right.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Do you have a favorite IP, a thing that you love more than anything else, Kyle? Like, if someone said, what kind of like pop culture nerd are you? Is there a show or series of movies that you're like, this one, I guess?
Oh, I'm sure there is, but I'm just drawing a blank at the moment.
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna
so-
say if we, yeah, we're getting late, but that's fine. I was just gonna say, like, if it was video game culture, that I would do a Silent Hill series. If anybody wants to ask a question about Silent Hill,
oh fuck yeah, I loved the shit out of the first 2 Silent Hill games, and I've never played any of the other ones.
Yeah.
And whenever somebody says, "Oh, you should get a console," I think of Silent Hill and Resident Evil first, and then I think of Final Fantasy and remember why I should not have a console.
How dare you? How dare you? We should actually do an episode on the critically acclaimed Final Fantasy 14 online MMO.
Who else would be on? It would just be you, Megan.
No, it would be me, Elwin, and Roman. It would be, and Steve.
Not those guys, not the L5R nerds. We don't want
Pretty
them
much.
back in our airwaves.
How dare you? There's other animes I think that are super, like, we should do a Dragon Ball Z episode with me and Dan.
My God. Yeah, I asked about movies or TV, and you're like video game and anime, and I'm like, you know what? I would sit down and do Jujutsu Kaisen because I just finished that. I can't, like, and I've got strong opinions about it too, but I don't know. There's nothing that's really capturing my attention these days. I am 2 episodes into Chaos.
Oh my God,
I
so
really enjoyed
fucking
it.
good.
Yeah, I'm hoping to watch it before I go down to Maryland. And then I spoke to Mieke about it, and I'm like, hey, how far through are you? Did you finish it yet? She's like, every time I go to start it, I fall asleep.
Oh my God, the first 2 minutes in it, I was like in it. I was like, this is going to be my life for the next like 24 hours.
Yeah.
Should I just stop and watch it with her?
I think she would really enjoy it. I really do. She just needs to like get past like a Goldblum in the first 10 minutes.
He is delightful.
Man, he goes places.
He does such a good job. And honestly, like,
Yeah.
I didn't really expect that this would be the story they decided to tell. And because of my recent obsession with a very specific musical, it made it that much better.
What is it, Hades Town?
Yeah, it is basically Eurydice and Orpheus. Eurydice and Orpheus. So, if she loves Hades Town, she's gonna love this.
I think she does. I think that is if we ever go to New York, that'll be why.